Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Laurie's Little Studio. I'm Laurie, and today we're going to be working on this project. It's the dress that's under that, and I know I keep saying dress, but it is definitely a nightgown. It's just referred to as a dress on the back of the pattern. This view B right here. I'm hoping I can use my serger on this. However, my serger has not been in use for over 20 years. It's been in its case, and I think that's basically where it sat for 20 years, over 20 years. So I'm going to give it a test, see how it works. If I need to take it in, I will take it in when I take George, my Bernina 1080 Special, into the shop. I haven't done that yet, but you know, life. But anyway, I wanted to show you these patterns that my daughter Candace picked up. I think they were all in the same place, and I think it was a thrift shop. I'm not sure because there's not markings on these patterns, and I know Goodwill would have stuck a sticker right on there. I'm thinking I'm going to try, before the end of the year, I'm at least going to try doing this Simplicity 2539 View A. Okay, so today we're going to do this out of this, it's a jersey knit with this fringe as it indicates you need to put at the bottom of the dress on View B. So I'll write this in my book. By the way, I did order some glass head pens and also some new friction ink pens. I think the pens and the pens are due today. I thought you might like to see what this looks like. I mean, 20 years in this brown case. I've moved this from Kansas to Washington State to our first house. From our first house after we lived in it for 20 years to our house in Mukilteo. And then we lived in that house for 5 years, and then last September we moved into this house without ever opening this case. And while it is still threaded, it looks like somehow, probably moving it has caused these spools of thread to shift and kind of get a little tangled up, and the machine is, looks like dust and grime. It absolutely astonishes me that things in a case can still get dusty. So I cannot lift this out without hitting my camera, so I'm going to turn the camera off. I'll lift it out and it'll be sitting on my table when we meet again. Look what I found in the bottom. I used to sell Capital Imports lace in my heirloom sewing shop. And when we moved from Kansas, I must have just been slinging stuff. So anyway, I've got some discolored. Look at this. This is just a reminder, if you have if you have items that have been in storage for a while, maybe not 25 plus years, you might want to open them up and look, because wow, I'm going to have to soak this lace to clean it. Holy mackerel. Oh, and the case itself is filthy. I'm so glad I didn't lock it, because I don't know where the keys are. It's like unearthing artifacts from long ago. Look how discolored this is. It used to be kind of a creamy, like the dial right here. This was the color that it used to be. And now it's this weird, old yellow. At least I kept the manual with it. Let's see. Holy moly. Well, you know, I'm just going to give it a go and see what happens. I'm checking the cords to make sure that they don't have any damage. Okay, I don't see anything. I'll be surprised if it even turns on. I don't know if it did. Oh, there it's gonna go. Okay, it got caught on something. I'm not surprised. Okay, there's that one. Not caught. Oh, this one's not even. So I know you don't want to watch me clean up an ancient old serger. I'm just going to do kind of a home clean, you know, where you take your brush and wipe off every single surface. And then here's another broken thread. Looks like that one's red. Yeah. But there's so much dirt and dust in here. I may have them thread it for me. I have to buy the thread at the shop anyway. And I didn't even mention the needles. The needles are the very first thing that I need to get out of this machine and replace with brand new. Don't forget that. That's like number one on the list of to-dos. If you buy a machine used, if somebody sells you one at a garage sale, it may work fine, but it might not stitch fine because it's got ancient needles in it. So very first thing, remove, replace those needles. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've definitely decided I'm going to take the serger in and the Bernina 1080 special in to quality sewing and something. I can't really think of what that place is, but that's where I take it. Every time anything needs to be done to the 1080, that's where it goes. So anyway, that will happen, and we're going to start on this project right here. I have got bread on the second rise, so in about 5 minutes I need to run downstairs and get it ready to bake. But I just wanted to show you before that happens what we'll be doing. We look for the view that we are doing, which is dress B, which is what this says right here. Dress B. And the pieces are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And there's a facing, there's the front, the back, and then 9 is a shoulder strap. So we've got to cut out 2 shoulder straps, a front, I think there's 2 backs. No, that's a fold and a fold. So there's a fold, there's 1 front piece, 1 back piece, 2 straps, and then the facing. All right, so that's what I need to do, and I'm going to go take care of my bread, and I'll be right back. When I get ready to tape a pattern back together, I do not want any other paper under it, because especially the pattern instructions. And the reason for that is if a piece of tape gets on here, you know how when you pull it up, it'll take the letters with it. So I don't need that to happen to me. Okay. Now I didn't use a solid, piece of tape, mainly because I have an issue with that. If I have a big long piece of tape and I'm trying to tape from here to here or from here to here, inevitably it will veer off course and I'll end up over here in Montana. So that's why I do a few small pieces of tape. All right, that's piece 8. Now I will do piece 7. Now it came apart a little bit right there, so I'm going to cut that back apart. I don't normally, I'm not going to use those scissors. I'm just too picky for that. I'll find a pair in my Boxo scissors. Yeah, we'll use these little. So I don't want this to have that big of a gap. Okay, so we have piece 7 and piece 8, and now I need to, while I was looking for tape, I found these. I used to take these to a sewing class. And this is the Fringe. I looked for Fringe that was listed as being washable, but to be honest with you, I feel like the Amazon stores can put that it's washable, and it doesn't necessarily have to be washable. So my plan is to take a bit. All right, do you see how there are loops? Like here's one right here. So it goes from here up and over, and the next one goes up and over, and the next one up and over. I want to cut in between one of those sets of loops. All right, I am going to hand wash this because I don't really have the patience to wait for a load of laundry and then just throw this in there, especially if it's gonna like fall apart. I want to make sure that it's going to hang with me. So I'm going to wash it vigorously by hand with soap and water and see how it reacts to that treatment. I believe the only notions that you need for this particular item, view B, this dress right here, would be the fabric, thread, a sewing machine, a needle for your sewing machine, and the fringe. And you don't have to have the fringe. You could use another you could put pom-poms on the bottom. You could put anything you wanted on the bottom, or nothing. You could just hem it and let that be that. Alright, so the next step for me is to cut out these pattern pieces from this fabric. I don't have a lot of space up here. Okay, now what I've done is cut 2 of these little pieces from the selvage edge, which I'm going to stitch together on the sides, and then I will attach it to the back neck edge. So there's my little tag that will help her see which is the back of the dress. I'm having such a hard time calling it that. I also wanted to wash this in the sink in the bathroom, so I'm gonna wash it, I'm gonna scrub it really, really well, and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. The reason I'm going to scrub it really well is I want to see if this untwists or if it will stay together. And I can't predict. I honestly don't know. I'll show you what it looks like when I come back. Okay, it's the next day, and look at this. It's dry, finally. It's dry, and it did not suffer it didn't suffer at all, and I was picturing catastrophe. I really was. There it is. So I feel hiccups. I feel very confident putting it on our dress over here. I don't think there'll be any issues. I'm still kind of flummoxed how this, I really felt like the ends would just fray right off. This is getting a little frayed, but it's because I keep playing with it. It's not, you know, I suspect if I used a lighter, it would look like this end, but it will be sewn. That's just flummoxing to me. So let's look at the directions. We've got our pieces cut out, and I am going to mark some spots on this with my air erase. The dress and top. So the first thing we need to do is mark our darts, and then we'll stitch the darts on the front of the dress. And as you can see, I've not removed the pattern paper. And this is the way I do this, but you want to make sure you get your pen straight through that hole to the other side, and then you just make that mark. I've probably said that this pen is pink, but the ink is more purple than pink. There's that mark right there. And make sure that you, on this particular pattern, if you have this pattern, which is this one, McCalls M8392, mark the markings at the top, because this is where your straps that go over the shoulders are. I can see through the fabric to the other side. I doubt that it's picking up on the camera. So I'm just transferring the markings to the other side, and now I'm just going to use my ruler as a straight edge to connect these lines. The two dots to match up. And I need to make sure that the lines are matched up. So if I push my pen straight through to the back and it matches up with the other line, then everything is good. Like so. The reason I'm using a zigzag is because knit fabric will move against a zigzag stitch. If there's a straight stitch, sometimes if you stretch the garment, the straight stitches will break. So it's up to you. I think sometimes people actually get away with using straight stitches, but I have found that zigzag just seems to work better on knit fabric. So next we're going to put our front and back pieces together. I need to make sure I don't have any markings except for this up here where the straps go. These notches, this is a notch right here. I know it's small, but we're going to match those up and pin the sides together. You could use clips if you don't want to use pins. Okay, so the drawing is showing this excess fabric facing down, and I've got mine facing up. So I'm going to push it down, and look what magically happens. It lines up with the edge of the way the fabric is going. If I have it going up, it sticks out like a dog ear. So push these facing down. My stitch length is 2.0. My stitch width is 5.0. And I kind of want my stitch length to be 2.5. So I'm going to push my plus button to get 2.5. Okay, now I need to switch the other side dart going down. This one's facing up as well. So we will push that down and see how it just magically lines up, and up here it's a dog ear. So let's do that. And then cut your thread. But I'm going to go from hem to top because I want my pins on this side. I could repin with my pins on the other side facing out, but I don't feel like it. So I'm going to stitch forward a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to hit that lock stitch. It stops all by itself, and then I can continue sewing. All right, now as you get to this dart, it's facing down, which makes it more difficult. It's going to naturally want to roll forward. So just slow down, and if you need to use something sharp to kind of hold it in place, you can do that. and see how I've got this facing down. Now if you want to, you can go back over these stitches with an overlock, I guess, which I have several options. Stitch 8, which I'll show you what that looks like. But I'm not sure that I want to use that much thread, so I'm not going to. It should be just fine. So the next step is to work on these shoulder straps. Piece number 9, which I believe is this one right here. And what we do is fold this in half. There are some markings right here and down here that we need to make. And when we come back, we'll make those marks, we'll sew those straps, and keep going. Okay, on piece 9, the pointy end, this end over here, is the back. It goes on the back side of the garment. Okay. I'm looking for what the seam allowance is. Okay, it says seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, which is included unless it's otherwise indicated, but it's not printed on the tissue paper, on the pattern paper. So I'm not exactly sure what that line was meant to be, because it's not the halfway mark. Maybe they started to put a line there and then they changed their minds, and that's why it's faded out. But you can just see remnants of it on the pattern piece. I didn't use it when I made this pattern as a top. Use whatever turning method you have. I'm using a safety pin. And if you do what I'm doing, don't pull real hard on that pin when it gets to the end. Just kind of tease out the fabric from the inside until you can get your fingers on it. You don't want to pull by the pin or you might tear your fabric. So see, I've got my pin has come through, but I'm going to pull on the fabric, not the pin. Okay, they want you to press this so that you have the pointy end is an angle. They don't want you to press it with this seam in the middle. They want it to be pressed with that seam on an edge. So the way I do it so that it comes out nice is I steam it with my iron and get it warm, and then it's a lot more pliable, and then I kind of push it down with my hands so that that edge is nice and sharp, and then I press. And you need this angle over here on both ends. I went ahead and pressed the lace that I found yesterday in the bottom of the Serger box. I'm going to give it to Candace. I'm going to see her this weekend, so I have huge vegetable bins to take to her, and the lace to give to her, and this I hope will be done by then. And I can give this to her at that time. Okay, so we pressed the straps, and basically what you should have are 2 straps with the pointed end, like so, facing inward. We don't want 2 of the same, so we don't want 2 at an angle to the left or 2 at an angle to the right. They need to be like that. Okay, so next we're going to turn our garment right side out, and the front piece will have the 2 darts right here. That's how you know it's the front. And most of the reason why I did not mark them. If the back had darts, I'd probably mark front and back. Okay, so we're going to take 1 strap with this angling to the inside this way. We don't want it facing that direction. So to the inside, and we're going to match up the dot, this dot and this dot, where these 2 dots are, and pin. I believe it tells you to baste. Yeah. I don't like to baste. That's terrible of me, but it's just such a waste of thread. I can't get past it. Maybe one day I will. Okay, so anyway, facing inward like this, not like that. So, like that. Match the dots. Like so. Now, if you want to baste, I say go for it. It's the correct thing to do. I'm just real weird about not basting. Okay, so our next step after this has been pinned or basted is to get our interfacing, which we will need for these 2 pieces. So 10 and 11 require interfacing for each piece. And remember, these are cut on the fold, so they will be twice as big. So you'll need to cut your interfacing on the fold. So I'll go grab that real quick. After I press number 11, I'm going to put it on top of the pattern piece for number 11, and press number 10 and put it on top of the number 10, so I don't get mixed up on which is which. All right, number 10 is front facing, right there, and number 11 is back facing, right there. And our mission, what we're supposed to do next, is attach piece 11 to piece 10. Okay, now they've been marked. So we'll turn them right sides together. And stitch right here. Okay, so remember, piece number 10 is the front facing. On the front side, now yours might be basted right here, and we're going to flip it over. I'm going to trim these side stitches right here. You want your armhole facing to be, this curve right here is supposed to be facing down. I want to make sure that my facing fits, so I'm going to come across, and it may not. Some fabric pieces may have stretched. I might have messed up my seam allowances. There's any number of reasons why this won't fit. A lot of fabrics behave differently with interfacing. You have to leave the opening between the dots open in the back. So you're going to say start right here and stitch all the way around and miss the other side and then stitch across the back and leave that open right there on both sides. For me, that opening is, I'm going to poke pins through so I can mark it. I can see it on the inside of the dress. I can't see it on the interfacing or the facing. Okay. Right there, and that's where it is. So I will not be stitching between the pins here. Okay, get your edges matched up. And I'm coming up to that dot, so I'll be stopping right there. Alrighty, I do think I need to come down right there. Okay, now we have some seams to check. Make sure everybody got caught, but nothing that we didn't want to get caught. Okie doke. Now I'm going to cut some of these wild threads, and I've got these gathering threads I need to cut. I want to turn the facing to the inside, but I'm first going to cut these little corners here. I don't want this extra bulk inside the facing area. And we'll just fold that and push it out. There's that strap. We'll cut this corner a bit. Push it out. I did not finish the lower edge of this facing. So what I'm going to do, which I was going to do anyway, before I completely turn it all the way out, is just zigzag, a real tight zigzag. I'll tell you what, it doesn't take much for me to get distracted. I don't have enough thread in my bobbin to do what I need to do. So I'm going to take the bobbin out and refill it. And when I come back, we're going to zigzag around the lower edge of the facing. Alright, I'm all set. I'm ready to finish the edge of the facing pieces. So I'm just going to do a real close to the edge zigzag. You can see. Now what the directions say is you're going to pull the straps from the front Make sure they're straight. And then poke it down in the little hole that you left. Main thing to do is make sure it's not twisted. And then you're just going to stitch right over where that went through. And we'll take it over to the ironing board. So to do this understitch, make sure that the facing piece and the seam allowance are on the same side. In other words, you don't want to stitch on the garment side. So the way I have it set up, my facing is here and the seam is also on this side. If I have it turned this way and I'm stitching it, it will show on the fabric of the garment. So we're going to turn that up and do a small zigzag. I just can't see myself doing a straight stitch on jersey knit fabric. So I need to drop my width down. I'm going to drop it to 3.0 and I'm going to leave the length at 2.5. And as I said before, there will be spots where you cannot go with your sewing machine and it won't matter that much. Trim off all your threads carefully and then take the garment at the side seams where the front piece meets the back piece, and we're going to stitch the facing down along this seam right here. And I'm going to use my stitch number 4 at 2.0. It defaults to 2.5. I'm going to have it at 2.0. And I'm only going to stitch down as far as my facing goes. But I'm going to stitch it face up so I can see where this seam is. And that will help keep your facing to the inside, but most especially your underarm area. You don't want that facing to flip out every time you put this on. And that's kind of an up close look at that. Okay, I just feel like I need to tack this down by hand in the front and back. It's just a bit much for this type of fabric. Alright, so the next step is to apply the fringe, and I'll need to make a narrow hem at the bottom of this dress right here. So for view B, you make a 5/8 of an inch narrow hem at the lower edge of the dress. And then on the outside, we pin the fringe to the lower edge, placing a bound edge along the hemline, turning it in 1/4 of an inch on the ends to meet at one side seam. I think that is as cute as the bee's knees. It is adorable. Wow. What a pretty little fringe. Neat. Okay, so the next thing for me to do is tack down the facing at the front and the back, and I have to do that by hand. And we'll be all finished. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making this little dress, nightgown, whatever you want to call it. Candace enjoys wearing it. She says it's washed up beautifully, no problems whatsoever with the fringe. And I didn't really mind stitching the facing down by hand. It was a quick job. It was really easy to do. So anyway, I will see you in the next video. Bye.